For 6 long months, a little girl secretly saved every coin she could find, skipping snacks, hiding her jar under the bed, and telling no one. But the day she finally gave it all away, even the richest man in town was left speechless. What could an 8-year-old possibly offer that would change a billionaire forever? Stay tuned because you are about to watch a beautiful story and find out what happened next. Hello family, welcome to Tales by King. Kindly subscribe to my YouTube channel for more beautiful stories. Thank you as you do so. Sit back, relax as we dive into the story. In a small quiet town called Brookville, there lived an 8-year-old girl named Lily Harper. Lily was small for her age, with soft brown eyes and curly dark hair that her mother tied into 2 simple ponytails every morning before school. She lived with her mother, Emily Harper, in a tiny rented apartment above Mr. Dalton's grocery store. The apartment was old. The wooden stairs creaked loudly every time someone walked on them. The kitchen was small, with only one window that looked down at the busy street below. When trucks delivered goods to the store early in the morning, the whole apartment would shake slightly. But to Lily, it was home. Emily worked very hard. She cleaned offices in the morning before most people even woke up. Then in the evening, she worked as a waitress at a small diner near the bus station. She was always rushing, always moving, always trying. Some nights, she came home so tired that she fell asleep on the couch before finishing her dinner. But no matter how tired she was, she never forgot to smile at Lily. One day, Emily would say softly while brushing Lily's hair at night, "Things will be better. I promise." Lily believed her mother with all her heart. One afternoon after school, Lily pushed open the apartment door and heard something unusual. It was quiet. Too quiet. Normally, Emily would be humming softly while washing dishes or folding laundry. But today, there was no humming. Lily stepped into the kitchen slowly. Emily was sitting at the small wooden table. Several papers were spread out in front of her. White envelopes, printed bills, and a hospital letter with red words written across the top. Emily's shoulders were slumped. She held her head in her hands. Lily froze near the doorway, unnoticed. "I don't know how I'm going to pay this," Emily whispered to herself. Her voice sounded weak. Lily saw the hospital letter. She knew what it was about. Her grandmother, Emily's mother, had been sick for months. She had heart problems and needed regular treatment. Sometimes she had to travel to the city hospital because the small town clinic did not have the right machines. Each visit cost money. Too much money. Emily had already borrowed from friends. She had already used up her small savings. There was nothing left. Emily let out a slow breath and wiped her eyes quickly when she heard Lily's small footsteps. "Oh, sweetheart," she said, forcing a smile. "You're home." Lily nodded and walked over quietly. "Is Grandma okay?" she asked. "Yes," Emily replied softly. "She's strong. Just tired." Lily looked at the bills again, but did not ask more questions. That night, while Emily worked at the diner, Lily sat on her bed thinking. She remembered the sound of her mother's worried voice. She remembered the hospital letter. She remembered how Grandma used to bake her warm cookies and tell her stories when she was younger. Lily looked around her small room. There was a shelf with old books, a tiny desk with crayons, and a worn-out teddy bear sitting near her pillow. Then she noticed something inside her school bag, an empty glass candy jar her teacher had given her after a class party. Lily picked it up and stared at it. An idea slowly formed in her mind. The next morning, Emily handed Lily 2 coins before school. "Buy yourself a snack today," she said gently. "You deserve it." Lily smiled. "Okay, Mommy." But when she reached the school canteen later that day, she changed her mind. Instead of buying a cookie like she usually did, she quietly walked back outside and slipped the coins into her pocket. When she got home that afternoon, she went straight to her room, knelt beside her bed, and carefully placed the jar underneath it. She dropped the 2 coins inside. Clink. The small sound echoed softly in the quiet room. Lily smiled. It did not look like much, but it was a beginning. From that day on, Lily started saving every coin she could. If Emily gave her change for snacks, she saved it. If she helped Mrs. Carter next door carry groceries and received a few coins as thanks, she saved them. If she found loose change on the sidewalk near the grocery store, she picked it up, washed it carefully in the sink, dried it with tissue, and placed it in the jar. Clink, clink, clink. Every coin made the jar a little heavier. Sometimes Lily felt tempted to buy something small, a colorful pen, a sweet treat, a hair ribbon like the other girls wore. But then she remembered her mother's tired face at the table. She remembered Grandma lying in the hospital bed, and she would whisper to herself, "It's for Grandma." Months passed. The weather changed from warm summer to cool autumn. Leaves outside their window turned orange and brown, and under Lily's bed, the jar slowly filled. She would sometimes pull it out at night and count the coins carefully on her blanket. Her small fingers moved slowly, making sure she did not miss any. It was not a lot compared to the numbers she heard adults talk about, but to her, it felt like treasure. One evening, as Emily kissed her goodnight, she said softly, "You're such a good girl, Lily. I don't know what I would do without you." Lily hugged her tightly. "You won't have to worry forever, Mommy," she said quietly. Emily smiled, not understanding. But under the bed, hidden in the shadows, the glass jar waited. Heavy, full of hope. And Lily was already planning what she would do with it. The news about Mr. Alexander Reed spread through Brookville like wildfire. People talked about him at the bakery, at the bus stop, inside the grocery store downstairs, and even at Lily's school. "He's a billionaire," someone whispered. "They say he owns companies in 3 countries. I heard he bought a house with a swimming pool bigger than our football field." Lily did not understand much about billionaires. She only knew one thing. Rich people had money. A lot of it. One evening, while sitting quietly in a corner of the diner after finishing her homework, Lily overheard 2 customers talking. Mr. Reed was in town because he planned to build a factory. The project would create jobs. The mayor was excited. Business owners were excited. But then one man said something that made Lily's heart tighten. "He's donating to big city hospitals," the man said while sipping coffee. "Millions of dollars." "That's good," the other replied. "Yes, but not here. Our town hospital is too small for someone like him to care about." Lily looked down at her notebook. Too small to care about. That night, as she lay in bed, she pulled out the glass jar and placed it on her blanket. The coins inside shone softly under the lamplight. She counted again. It was not millions. It was not even thousands. But it was everything she had. She imagined her grandmother traveling far again for treatment. She imagined her mother worrying over more hospital bills. Then she imagined something else. What if someone powerful helped? What if someone with enough money decided Brookville was not too small? Lily stared at the jar. An idea slowly formed in her young mind. 2 days later, the whole town gathered in the square for a public meeting. A large black car pulled up near the stage. It was shiny and expensive. People moved aside to make space. Mr. Alexander Reed stepped out. He was tall, wearing a perfectly fitted black suit. His hair was neatly styled, and his expression was serious. He walked confidently, but not proudly. His face showed no smile. Lily stood at the back of the crowd, holding her backpack tightly. Mr. Reed spoke about business growth, job opportunities, and development. He spoke clearly and calmly. The adults nodded in approval. But Lily listened carefully for one thing. He never mentioned the hospital. When the meeting ended, people rushed forward to shake his hand or take pictures. Security guards formed a line to keep space around him. Lily stayed where she was watching. Her heart beat faster. This was her chance. But she felt scared. He looked important. Busy. Far away. What would a man like that think of a small girl with a jar of coins? That evening, she could not sleep. She turned from one side of the bed to the other. Finally, she sat up and whispered to herself, "If I don't try, nothing will change." The next morning, she made a decision. At school, Lily raised her hand during break time. "Yes, Lily?" her teacher asked kindly. "May I leave early today?" she said softly. "I have something important to do." Her teacher studied her face for a moment. Lily was usually quiet and responsible. "All right," she said gently. "But be careful." Lily nodded and hurried home. She pulled the jar from under her bed. It was heavier than before. She wrapped it carefully in a small towel so it would not break. Then she placed it inside her backpack. Her hands trembled slightly. She did not tell her mother. She wanted to do this herself. The Grand Hotel where Mr. Reed was staying stood near the edge of town. It was the nicest building in Brookville. As Lily walked toward it, the sun felt hotter than usual. Her legs felt weak. She almost turned back twice. But then she remembered her grandmother's tired smile in the hospital bed, and she kept walking. The hotel doors were tall and made of glass. When she stepped inside, cold air brushed her face. The floor was shiny and smooth. Large chandeliers hung from the ceiling. People in suits moved quickly from one side to the other. Lily felt very small. She walked slowly to the front desk. "Excuse me," she said softly. The receptionist looked down in surprise. "Yes, I need to see Mr. Alexander Reed." The woman blinked. "Do you have an appointment?" Lily shook her head. "It's important." Before the receptionist could answer, a security guard stepped forward. "You can't just walk in to see him," he said firmly. Lily's fingers tightened around her backpack straps. "Please," she whispered. "I just need 5 minutes." The guard looked at her more carefully this time. She did not look like someone causing trouble. She looked serious, determined. He sighed and spoke into his communication device. "There's a young girl here asking to see Mr. Reed. Says it's important." There was a pause. Then, unexpectedly, a voice answered, "Send her up." The guard raised his eyebrows. "Follow me," he said. Lily swallowed hard. As the elevator doors closed, she stared at her reflection in the mirror. Her ponytails were slightly messy. Her shoes were worn. Her hands felt sweaty. But her heart was steady. Inside her backpack, the jar of coins rested quietly. And in just a few minutes, she would stand in front of the most powerful man in town, holding everything she had saved for 6 long months. The elevator doors opened slowly. Lily stepped out into a quiet hallway with thick carpet and tall windows. The air smelled fresh and clean. Everything looked expensive. The security guard led her to a large wooden door. He knocked once. "Sir, she's here." A deep voice answered from inside. "Let her in." The door opened. Lily walked into a wide office suite with glass walls and a large desk near the window. The town of Brookville could be seen below, small and peaceful. Mr. Alexander Reed stood beside the desk. He had removed his suit jacket, but he still looked sharp and serious. Papers were spread across the table. A laptop screen glowed in front of him. For a moment, he simply looked at her. He seemed confused. "You wanted to see me?" he asked calmly. Lily nodded. Her hands felt cold. "Yes, sir." He gestured toward a chair. "Come in." The security guard stepped outside and closed the door behind her. Now it was just the two of them, a powerful billionaire, and a small 8-year-old girl. Lily slowly removed her backpack and placed it carefully on the edge of the desk. Mr. Reed watched her with curiosity. She unzipped the bag. Her hands trembled slightly as she pulled out the glass jar wrapped in a small towel. She gently unwrapped it and placed the jar on the desk. The coins inside clinked softly. Mr. Reed's eyes moved from her face to the jar. "What is this?" he asked. Lily took a small breath. "It's my savings." He frowned slightly. "Your savings?" "Yes, sir." She pushed the jar closer to him. "I heard you are helping hospitals. Our town hospital needs help too. My grandma is sick. They don't have enough machines. They say it's too small." Mr. Reed's expression slowly changed. Lily continued speaking, her voice quiet but steady. "I've been saving for 6 months. I didn't buy snacks. I didn't buy toys. I kept every coin. It's not much, but if you add it to your money, maybe it will be enough." The room became very still. Mr. Reed stared at the jar. It was filled with coins of different sizes. Some were shiny. Some were old and scratched. A few small paper notes were folded tightly inside. He walked closer and touched the glass lightly. "How old are you?" he asked softly. 8. "And you saved this by yourself?" "Yes, sir. For 6 months." She nodded. "I wanted to surprise my mommy," she added quietly. "She's worried about the hospital bills. I thought, maybe if I give this to you, you can make it bigger." Her words were simple, but they carried weight. More than millions. Mr. Reed felt something he had not felt in years. When he was a boy, he had also grown up in Brookville. His family was not rich. His father had worked in a factory. His mother had struggled with medical bills too. He remembered sitting beside her hospital bed, feeling helpless. He had promised himself that one day, he would be powerful enough that no one he loved would suffer like that again. Somewhere along the way, he had become successful. Very successful. But he had also become distant. Focused only on numbers, profits, and expansion. Now, standing in front of him was a small girl who had given up everything she had. Not for herself, but for someone else. He looked at her tiny fingers resting on the desk. "Why didn't you keep it?" he asked gently. "You could buy something for yourself." Lily shook her head. "Grandma needs it more." Her answer was immediate. No hesitation. Mr. Reed felt his throat tighten. He picked up the jar carefully. It was heavier than he expected. Not because of the coins, but because of what they meant. "I have received many donations in my life," he said slowly. "Large checks. Investments. Partnerships." He looked down at the jar again. "But no one has ever given me something like this." Lily blinked. He suddenly pulled out his chair and sat down so that he was at her eye level. "Do you know how much money I have?" he asked gently. She shook her head. "A lot," he answered quietly. "More than I could ever spend." "Then you can help," she said simply. He let out a small breath that almost sounded like a laugh, but it wasn't amusement. It was disbelief. Her logic was innocent and completely true. There was a knock on the door. "Sir, the investors are waiting," his assistant said from outside. "Tell them to wait," Mr. Reed replied without looking away from Lily. The assistant hesitated. "Sir, it's important." "So is this," he said firmly. Silence followed. Then the footsteps moved away. Lily watched him carefully. "Are you mad?" she asked softly. He looked surprised. "Mad?" "Yes. Because it's not a lot." For the first time in years, Alexander Reed smiled. A real smile. "No," he said gently. "I'm not mad." He paused. "I'm honored." Lily did not fully understand that word, but she saw something different in his eyes now. Warmth. Respect. He stood up slowly, still holding the jar. "You said your grandmother is sick?" "Yes, sir." "What is her name?" "Margaret Harper." He nodded thoughtfully. "And you trust me with this?" She nodded again. "Yes. You're the richest man in town." Her answer was honest and simple. Mr. Reed let out a soft breath. He walked to the large window and looked down at Brookville. The small houses. The tiny hospital building in the distance. The town he once left behind. Then he looked back at Lily. "You have given me something more valuable than money today," he said quietly. She tilted her head. "What?" He looked at the jar in his hands. "A reminder." He walked back toward her and gently placed his hand on top of the jar. "Go home, Lily," he said softly. "I promise you, this will not be ignored." She studied his face carefully, searching for truth. She saw it. She picked up her empty backpack. "Thank you, sir," she whispered. As she walked toward the door, Mr. Reed remained standing in the center of the room, staring at the jar. The investors could wait. The meetings could wait. For the first time in many years, something more important had walked into his office. And it was only 8 years old. The next morning, Brookville woke up to unexpected news. A message had been sent to the mayor, the hospital director, and several local reporters. Mr. Alexander Reed was calling for a public announcement in the town square. No one knew why. Emily was at work in the diner when she received a phone call from Lily's school. "Mrs. Harper," the principal said gently, "Mr. Reed has asked that you and Lily attend an event this afternoon. It seems important." Emily's heart jumped. "Is Lily okay?" she asked quickly. "Yes," the principal replied. "She is perfectly fine." But Emily's hands still trembled as she hung up. When she arrived home later that afternoon, Lily was already dressed neatly, sitting quietly on the couch. "Mommy," Lily said softly, "can we go to the town square?" Emily looked at her carefully. "What did you do?" she asked with a half smile. Lily hesitated. "I gave something away." Emily frowned slightly, but decided to ask questions later. They walked together to the square, where a small stage had been set up. A crowd had already gathered. Cameras and microphones stood near the front. Whispers filled the air. "What is happening? Is it about the factory? Is he canceling something?" Then a black car pulled up. Mr. Alexander Reed stepped out. But this time he looked different. He was still wearing a sharp suit, but his expression was softer, more thoughtful. In his hands, he held a familiar glass jar. Emily's eyes widened. She slowly turned to look at Lily. "Lily, what is that?" Lily swallowed. "I wanted to help Grandma," she whispered. Emily covered her mouth in shock as understanding slowly filled her heart. Mr. Reed stepped onto the stage. The crowd grew silent. He placed the jar carefully on the podium. "This jar," he began, "contains coins saved by an 8-year-old girl." People exchanged confused glances. He continued. "For 6 months, she gave up snacks, toys, and small pleasures. She saved every coin she had. And yesterday, she gave it to me." Gasps rose from the crowd. He looked directly at Lily. "She told me, if you add it to your money, maybe it will be enough." A soft murmur spread across the square. Mr. Reed paused, his voice steady but emotional. "I have built companies worth billions. I have signed contracts larger than most people can imagine. But yesterday, I received the most valuable gift of my life." He lifted the jar slightly. Not because of the money inside, but because of the heart behind it. Emily felt tears rolling down her cheeks. Lily stood frozen, holding her mother's hand tightly. Mr. Reed then turned serious. "When I was a boy in this town, my own mother struggled with hospital bills. I promised myself that one day, I would help others. But somewhere along the way, I forgot what truly matters." He looked at the hospital building in the distance. "Today, I am making a commitment." The crowd leaned forward. "I will fully renovate Brookville Hospital. New equipment, new treatment rooms, a heart care unit, and no patient in this town will be turned away because of money." The square exploded in applause. Emily broke down in tears. Lily blinked in surprise. Mr. Reed raised his hand for silence. "In addition," he continued, "Margaret Harper's medical expenses will be fully covered. Starting today." Emily fell to her knees in shock. Lily stared at him. "Grandma," she whispered. "Yes," Mr. Reed said gently. "Your grandmother." Then, something even more unexpected happened. Mr. Reed stepped down from the stage. In front of everyone, in front of cameras and reporters, the billionaire knelt down to Lily's height. "You reminded me of who I used to be," he said softly, "and who I want to become again." He handed her the jar. But it was empty. She looked confused. He smiled. "I kept 1 coin," he said, "to remind me. But the rest? I matched every single coin you gave, and added much more." Lily's eyes filled with tears. "You did," she whispered. "Yes," he replied. "Because when someone gives everything they have, you don't ignore it. You honor it." Months passed. The hospital construction began quickly. Workers repaired walls, installed new machines, and built a bright new wing named the Harper Heart Center. Emily no longer stayed up at night worrying over bills. Margaret's treatments improved. Slowly, her strength returned. She could sit up longer. She could smile more. She even began telling Lily her old bedtime stories again. But the biggest change was in Mr. Reed. He began visiting Brookville more often. Not for business. For people. He started a foundation for small-town hospitals. He listened to local families. He walked through the hospital halls himself, speaking kindly to patients. The cold businessman people once feared slowly became someone different. Someone human. One quiet evening, Lily sat on her bed, holding the now empty jar. Emily entered the room and sat beside her. "You gave away everything you saved," Emily said gently. "Were you ever scared?" Lily thought for a moment. "A little," she admitted. "But I knew if I didn't try, nothing would change." Emily hugged her tightly. "You are braver than most adults I know," she whispered. Outside the window, the lights of the new hospital wing glowed brightly in the night sky. Far away in his office, Mr. Alexander Reed opened a small drawer in his desk. Inside was a single coin. He picked it up and smiled softly. That tiny coin reminded him of something powerful. That true wealth is not measured in billions. It is measured in kindness. And sometimes, it takes a small girl with a jar of coins to change a billionaire's heart forever. That brings us to the end of this video. I hope you find this story worth watching. If you do, kindly subscribe to my YouTube channel for more beautiful stories, like, comment, and share this video to your friends and loved ones. Your support and engagement encourage me to post more videos. Thanks for watching.